hold on tight. 'Cause you know tomorrow may not bring that same thing that you said last night. Woo! Every time I find a little peace of mind, I hold on tight. 'Cause tomorrow may not bring the very same thing. No, no, no. Said none of the right there. You that care all. Just for me, I'm so glad that you that care all. Just for me, I'm so glad that you that care all. For a sinner like me.
Hello, Frankie Jones or Frankie LaTroy. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, brother. How about yourself?
Simply fantastic, and thank you for asking. Now, before we get too far, can you just give me a little bit of the difference between Jones and LaTroy?
Yes, definitely so. So Frankie LaTroy Jones is my entire name, first, middle, last. Frankie Jones is what I use for ministry or when I'm, maybe, speaking in a different area where it's not a performance. Frankie LaTroy would be what would be considered like my stage name or my poet name is Frankie LaTroy. When I do movies or certain things like that, you will see Frankie LaTroy in the credits, not Frankie Jones. But if you hear a sermon from me, you're going to see Frankie Jones, not Frankie LaTroy in that way.
Okay. Well, we want to touch a little bit on all of that. Your pastoring or your ministering, your preaching, and the other part, your stage, your poetry, and when you go talk to people. That's where I kind of got more interested in you, seeing you out and talking to other people. Do you mind sharing a little bit of some of the engagements you have and some of the things you have spoken for?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, how much time we got?
Hey, we could take as much as you want. We could do a two-part if you want.
It's a two-part. So, speaking engagements really are my life. As you know, I preach every Wednesday night for the Light Experience over at Colorado Christian Fellowship. As a professional poet, I travel the country. I haven't traveled recently since the pandemic, but one of the things I do is travel, doing speaking engagements at schools, or whether it's other training other poets and spoken word artists. I've been in movies on Netflix. I've done speaking engagements at different galas. I've done oh man, there's so many different things. I work with the Colorado Symphony, and I'm a part of a concert that's called Lift Every Voice, and it's the youth concerts with the Colorado Symphony. And that's really neat because I get to perform with a full 60-piece symphony behind me. I'll be speaking at the commencement speech for a couple high schools coming up here this year. So yeah, I mean, speaking engagements are really just it is my core of what I do in my life. So it's my life is normally getting prepared for another speaking engagement. So once I'm working on one and I agree to do one, I'm always working on that one while I'm preparing for the next one. So it just that's kind of my daily duties really.
Like right now, you're speaking. You're making another
Yeah, yeah.
appointment. Could you give us a little bit more about that youth thing with the orchestra?
Yeah, so I got to give you the whole story, right? So,
Okay.
I was asked to come in and speak for the Martin Luther King Humanitarian Awards. This is 2019, 2020, and this is something that the city does every year when they do the MLK March. Well, that night they bring in artists and and jazz musicians and orchestra folks and different speakers, and they performed downtown at the DCPA.
Okay.
Well, I was asked to come in and do a poetry with some symphony, which I was like, that's right up my alley because normally when I perform my poetry, I have symphony behind me, just usually playing off of a track. I don't have my own band or anything like that, but I got like some music playing in the back because that kind of sets the tone for the poetry. So I was like, hold on, a live symphony with and for MLK? Oh,
Wait. I like the way you say that. I see where I'm getting excited. Alive? I mean, with
live?
instruments, professional people. I mean,
Yeah,
that get paid to do this, and they're
right.
gonna play for you while
Come
you
on.
do a speak.
God did his thing. I was able to speak, and it was a packed house. It was wonderful. They asked me to come back and perform for the march. And at the end of the march, they were going to meet down at the Capitol and they wanted some speakers. So they asked me to come in and do something for that. So I was like, of course, MLK. Denver has one of the biggest MLK marches in the country.
Okay.
Just the cause itself, I was excited. So I went down, I spoke for that. I always tell speakers this. This is what I always teach those who I train. You are always auditioning for your next speaking engagement at every event you do.
Okay.
And never forget that. Most of my jobs don't come from me coming into audition. Most of my jobs come in from, hey, we saw you at, hey, we heard about, I got a friend that was at one of your shows.
That's
That's
it.
how I normally get my speaking engagements.
That's
I haven't auditioned for a speaking engagement, and this is not a bragging thing. It's just how the world works with speakers. With any, and this is not just me. This is any professional. Whether it's like a motivational speaker or whoever or a preacher, whatever it is, we don't audition for those things. It is someone heard about so and so, told about so and so, and then you get an invite. That's
Well,
how it
that's
works.
that's exactly what happened in
You
this
know,
situation. I mean, I
bingo.
heard, I saw, and I had to call you up and try to get an invite. And I thank you for answering the call.
Oh man, honors. We finished the MLK pieces, right?
Okay.
And again, did my thing. Everybody was pleased, no problem. I get a call. Well, I got an email actually about a month later. And it was like, hey, this is the Colorado Symphony. We're doing these youth concerts. We saw you at the MLK Humanitarian Awards. Would you be interested in doing a season with the Colorado Symphony? I'm like, whoa. Season? So you're not talking about one show, you're talking about a whole season. Well, another reason why this is big is because the Colorado Symphony doesn't have poets.
Okay. Okay.
That's not what they do.
Talk to us about that,
You
poet.
know, that's not what they do. I mean, if you play an instrument, you got an opportunity to perform with the Colorado Symphony for a season. So they said, my first question always is, what is your focus? Because there are a lot of opportunities that I turn down. I always teach if the focus doesn't fit who you are, don't do it.
Okay.
Because one, you're not going to perform to your best ability. Two, because of that, you're going to mess up your next opportunity. If I come in and I halfway do something and that's your first time seeing me, you're going to think that's my ability. Not knowing I didn't really want to do it, but I just kind of threw something together last minute. I'm not going to have an opportunity to come to you and say, whoa, no. I got better stuff than that. I was just, so anytime I agree to do something, I have to fully believe in what your vision and what your mission is. Doesn't mean I'm better than anyone else or I'm above or beneath anybody's call. But as a speaker, you got to make sure it is what's in your heart because then it's going to be a right fit. Sometimes the fit is just not right. I don't care how much they paying you. I don't care how great it may seem. If the fit's not right, stay away from it. So I asked the symphony, well, what's your vision? And they said, well, it's called Lift Every Voice. Now, knowing my background with speech and not being able to speak, well, that automatically spoke to me, Lift Every Voice. Well, give me more about that. And they were talking about helping children who don't have a voice find a voice. I signed the dollar line immediately. Oh, you write down you speak in my language. Where do I sign? I didn't even know how much I was getting paid. Let me know where I sign at because that is my life. helping people who don't have a voice find one.
So what I hear is that if your heart isn't into it, because a lot of people do things for money, necessity,
Bingo.
uh,
Bingo.
they want popularity and things of this nature.
Right.
But just like you were saying that the symphony, and I know you were at a mental health speech. That's when I actually, for the first time, really saw you in action. And
Okay.
and then
Oh, you
that,
were there.
no,
Okay.
no, no. I saw someone taped you. Just to show you how this works.
Oh,
Someone
wow.
taped you and said, this brother might work for you. And I mean, and was telling me about how you operate. And I had heard
Wow.
about you, but I never saw you. Somebody taped
Okay.
you, brought me to
Wow.
tape. So then after that, I end up coming to your church. I heard you preach. One thing that
Yeah.
I really got on, and especially that last part you were talking about, you signed on the dotted line because that was right up your alley. One thing that I wanted to commend you on are the young people that you were reaching, and the young people after
Thank you.
your sermon that were touched by you. And I would advise a lot of people or young people to go on Wednesday night to CCF and check out my man Frankie here.
I appreciate it.
He's
Yes,
for
sir.
real, and he's really good at what he's do. And what got me is to see the young people listening to you and the young people turning their life over. You know, that was a bullet for me. But I this
Amen.
is your
Amen.
this is your thing. I don't want to tell your
that's,
story, but
that's all right.
that mental piece got to me. And then as we started to talk and I get to know more about you, I know you had a lot of engagements, a lot. Like you said, you done traveled, everything of this nature. But I do also know there was a challenge. There was an obstacle as a young youth that you had to get
Yes,
over.
sir.
And I was just wondering, do you mind sharing a little bit about that in case there's someone else that might be suffering that?
Yeah, for sure. So I am what's considered a PWS, and that stands for person who stutters. Um, and there's different levels of having a speech impediment, right? There are those who are completely mute, and many people have met folks like that. There are people who stutter, and stuttering has a high severity of it, and then there's a lower spectrum of it, where you'll meet some people, and every once in a while you'll kind of see a little hiccup and maybe a word or a phrase. And then there's people on the opposite spectrum of that to where there's a full body movements. You see, they can't quite get the word out. Back when I was growing up, they labeled us mentally retarded, was the word that they used, mentally handicapped. So as a young kid, I was on the heavy spectrum of stuttering, which means also sometimes I would be mute. I just couldn't, it wouldn't come out. I knew what I wanted to say. I understand how to enunciate the word. I had no problem understanding how my mouth needed to work, but for whatever reason, I couldn't get sound. I couldn't get the word out. So, for example, if I was in sixth grade or seventh grade, and you came up and you introduced me and you said, "Hello, what's your name, son?" It would probably take me 2 to 3 minutes to say my name. Which 2 to 3 minutes doesn't sound like it's really a long time, but when you're sitting there holding somebody's hand, because for you and I right now, hey, how you doing? What's your name? What's your name? Shake your hand. Hey, my name is Frankie. How's it going? Well, that's about 7 seconds.
Right.
Take that and go 2 minutes with me holding your hand, and I'm jockling, and I'm my name. And now the first thing that happens is you're thrown off because you have no idea what's happening to this person. It's not like I got a tag on that says, "I stutter, give me a moment." Or, if you didn't know, if you just saw me, I would just stand in there and you walked up and say, "Hey, can you give me directions to the next bus stop," or whatever it is. And I would go through this. It was so demoralizing.
Let me ask
Yeah,
you
yeah.
something, because I have seen people, you're talking about different levels of stuttering, but the ones that jerk or they can't get it. And this is just a question. I had a friend that did that. and I would be patient, you know, and let them
Yeah.
work it out. A lot of times I would turn around and say it for them. Is that,
Oh,
or is that okay? That's what I want to know. How is that taken?
yeah. That is, we consider that the highest level of disrespect. Yeah, because and again, people don't know, right? So it's not like for us, it's just give me a minute. I want to conversate with you. People think they're helping us by
Yes.
completing the sentence because you can pretty much see where I'm going. You know, if I'm pointing this way, you say, "Oh, what you mean to say is," and then even
Frank.
right, you know,
Okay,
so you
Frankie.
start saying you start saying Frederick, Frankfurt, you know, and you're trying to help me.
Yes.
But what's going on is now I want to say it work. Now I want to say it with even more vigor than I did before. So now you're actually not helping me, and I feel like I'm not on a level to speak with you. What you're letting me, well, how it makes us feel is that I am so beneath you that it's almost like if a grown man is trying to eat and you walk over there and pick up his fork and here, I got you. Here, I'll put the food on your fork for you. It's like, no, let me say my own words. I'm struggling. I'm gonna get through it, but let me finish, which is hard for someone who doesn't have an impediment. It is very difficult because again, those 30, 45, 50 seconds of silence or not being able to get the word out seems like forever to someone who doesn't stutter. And you're
Well,
like, come on, man, come on with it. So
well, I'm glad that you shared that because,
yeah.
and I've always wanted to ask that question. And a lot of
Uh-huh.
people probably don't know they're being offensive. So it's good that you
They
tell
don't.
us a little bit about how this works because I truly was not being offensive. I was, like you said,
Right.
after about 40, 50 seconds, to say, can I help a brother out? You know what I'm
Come
saying?
on.
That's
Right.
what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Okay, so
Exactly.
what is the way that if I encounter a person in that situation again, what is the correct way or non-offensive way to handle that?
Maintain eye contact. As hard as it is, don't look away from us. As a person who stutters, could you imagine most of your life when you speak, people look away? Every time you open your mouth, somebody looks away. You start feeling like people don't see you. The first thing is maintain eye contact. Another thing you can say to them is, hey, take your time. I'm right here.
I never I have. Sometimes I've seen people stutter and I never really did it like in their face, but I have
Mm-hmm.
went back on the side or something and imitated what they were going through. I've answered
Yep.
the questions. So
Mm-hmm.
I've been ignorant on how to handle these situations. I'm really glad. So can you continue to pick us up? I think it was about the sixth grade and
Yeah.
second. Okay.
Yeah. So sixth, seventh grade, obviously I hate school, right? No stutterer liked school as a kid. Trust me. I was
Okay.
Porky Pig. I was
Oh no.
Simity Sam. Anybody that stuttered or had a speech impediment. Oh, here comes Frankie, the stuttering kid, right? And kids are brutal. Like
Yeah.
adults are brutal too, but kids are just merciless, man. I mean, you know, and that was back when people was playing the dozens, you
Yeah.
know, talking about your mama jokes and all that. First of all, I couldn't talk about nobody because I couldn't talk. So I would have good comebacks. I just
Okay.
couldn't say it.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I absolutely hated school. And it was tough because there was such an ignorance, and I don't mean this as a disrespectful way of
No,
saying
I
ignorance.
understand. We just
Ignorance
didn't
in the
know.
true right, the true definition of the word ignorant. Folks
Right.
didn't know.
We
So
just didn't know.
teachers, kids, even my own family, right? So it was really tough going through those making friends, people who you thought were your friend. When other people came around and made fun of you, those kids would make fun of you. And it was like, wow, I thought you were, you know. And then the thing about stuttering is that makes it even harder is that there's good days and bad days as a person who's a severe stutterer. So I may have a Monday and Tuesday where you look at me and go, man, you're doing pretty good. Like I'm not hearing a whole lot. And I get this false hope that, whatever happened, I'm cured. I mean, it gets so desperate as a stutterer, my brother. We start looking at, hey, what did I eat today? How much sleep did I get? Did I pray a certain way? Did something, was the wind I mean, because stuttering is still one of the only issues with people that there is no cure for.
Oh.
It is one of the only issues that people that humans have, they have still not found a cure for.
What?
So anytime a stutterer has a good day, we start looking at anything. The light's brighter. Okay, maybe that's what it was or whatever.
What is it that causes stuttering?
They don't know. That's the problem. Some say it's hereditary and some of it can be, but it's more prominent in men than it is women, but it does happen in women as well. It doesn't attach itself to culture or ethnic groups. I mean, Black people stutter, white people stutter, Asian people stutter, Hispanic people stutter. I've met them all, but there are more men than women. It is more rare to see a woman who stutters than a man. Those are the scientific facts to it, right? But as far as what causes it, I've stuttered since I know. I know now some people will have a stroke and become stutterers. Some people have spoken, clearly their whole lives. And then after they have a stroke, now they need a speech doctor because for some other reason, whatever happened behind that stroke, they can't talk clean or straight, as we would say, right? But then some of us, like myself, I was stuttering when I was saying gaga goo goo, like stuttered since I could make sound. Didn't know any different than stuttering.
Did you go through high school this way and growing up?
Oh, yeah. I had to relearn how to speak when I was 26. 25, 26 is when I relearned how to speak. And I'm talking about relearn how to speak like you would teach a child. Books, John went to the store. I'm 26 years old reading these books.
So what you're saying, I mean, if I'm understanding it, 26 years old, you, even though you could read and write, you understood things, you couldn't speak. This is what it, like you said, you had a good comeback, but you couldn't get it out there.
Couldn't get it out.
So
I could write it.
Okay.
I had a great high level of comprehension.
Right.
I comprehended words. I knew words, right? But I couldn't. Here was one of the breaking points right before me relearning how to speak. I remember my little sister sitting on my lap. Now remember, I'm 25, 26 years old. My little sister sitting on my lap, and I'm reading her a book, right? And it was Mary, it was very simple stuff. Bus, train, car. Well, I started having what we call blocks. And a block is when you start to, jerk and whatnot, trying to get the words out. My little sister, who had to be 3, 4, 5 years old, looked at me and she thought I couldn't read. So she said, "Big brother, it's okay. I'll read it. I'll read it for you." And again, this book is like Mary went to the store, John rode his bike. She thought I couldn't read. It crushed me. It was one thing for the world to make fun of me and to, call me retarded or mentally handicapped. But for my little sister to be on my lap and look at me and go, "Oh, you can't read. I'll read it for you."
Amen.
That day, I looked up speech pathologists. And just so happens, one of the most world-renowned speech pathologists lived in my city. And I went and met with him.
Their advice was to just start reading Dick and Jane.
Yeah. I mean, and I was so offended. I'm looking at this dude like, come on, man. Really? Like, you want me to start reading kid books?
What was the strategy behind, because you're saying you already could read, your comprehension was off the chart, but what was the advantage of starting over reading that?
Learning what we call speech tools, easy onsets, continuous phonations. Like an easy onset is a way for you to break the tough sound going into a word. So for example, instead of saying Bible is a hard sound to make for a stutterer. So an easy onset I would go, "I was reading my Bible. Bible. I would stretch that word so it wasn't so Bible. So I couldn't pop it, but I could say Bible. So at 26, if you were to speak to me, my speech sounded really strange because again, that's a that's an easy onset, but like a continuous phonation would be instead of saying, "I'm happy to be on this interview," I'm
Okay,
happy to be
okay.
on this interview. I would say, "I'm happy to be on this interview." That's no way to live your life speaking like that, right?
I can see from my own perspective of why a lot of people would associate that with some kind of mental breakdown.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
just you talking and explaining this, it's like, wow, you know, I would have never known these things that you're speaking of that an individual in your situation has to go through just to be able to speak. And you're 20 something years old. And I'm sure
20
that,
something years old.
and I don't know, but it seemed like this would have affected, like you said, not only just friendship, but relationships, going out to partying or talking to girls,
Oh
all of that
man,
kind of stuff.
all the above. One of the most, well, I had a bunch of embarrassing stories. One of the most embarrassing stories I ever had was a job interview.
Well, another episode of Where Were You? And we would like to thank our guests for this evening. Also want to thank New Me. New Me helps sponsor Where Were You? So go on and check it out. New Me /Arkway. Also, go on and hit that like. Go on and hit subscribe. Go on and hit that share. Go on and leave a comment. And if you find anyone that has a story, let me know. And hey, you bless someone today.